Hey guys, so today we're checking out the Armour Rear Bumper with dually lights, fitting all 2016 and newer Toyota Tacomas. So if you're in search of some heavy-duty protection while also giving the back of your truck a more off-road look, this is going to be a great choice to take a look into. So if you're taking your truck out off-roading, if you're taking it out on the work site, or you're just looking for some heavy-duty protection to the rear end of your Tacoma, this is going to provide that with a heavy-duty stainless steel construction. It's also going to add a nice textured black powder coat on finish to protect that steel underneath, but also what it's going to do is provide you a more utilitarian and also just a more aggressive look to the back end. Now, what I do really like about this bumper in particular is not only the aggressive and heavy-duty aesthetic, but this is also going to come with two 3-inch cube lights for extra visibility and extra lighting out of the rear end of your truck. Now, this is going to be able to be used as backup lights, or you can even use them as work lights if you're doing anything behind your truck or working out of your tailgate. Now, just like the bumper, these are going to have a very long lifespan, and they're also going to be incredibly bright considering they are an LED. Now, with that being said, this rear bumper and light combo is going to come in at roughly $700, putting it at a pretty average price point for a rear bumper for a Tacoma. Now, I personally think this is a fantastic price for what is included in the kit. So not only are you getting that heavy duty bumper and also those auxiliary lights, but you're getting everything that you need in order to get this thing installed on your Tacoma, including the license plate light. You're getting a mount for not only the hitch plug, but also any backup sensors if your Tacoma has those equipped. And this is also going to accept the factory hitch and come with a wiring harness for those two auxiliary lights, which you don't see that often, and I particularly find really useful out of this kit. Now, some other choices on the page may be set up very similarly. However, a lot will not include those lights. Some may be a little bit more compact in this bumper. Kind of comes down to your personal preference and what you're looking for. However, if you're looking for a heavy duty look while also some extra lighting out of the back end of your truck, then this is going to be an incredible choice. Now, install is going to be a 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. You will need a little bit of mechanical know-how to get this thing installed. However, it shouldn't take you any longer than an hour with some pretty basic hand tools. So speaking of that install, let's jump into that right now. Tools that I use for my install were an impact wrench, 4mm Allen key, a 19 and 13mm wrench, a 3/8 inch drive and 1/4 inch drive ratchet, an 18, 12, 10, and 8mm socket, a Phillips head screwdriver, and a wire tool. So our first step to this is removing our license plate. Now, the hardware may depend, depending on what you have there. We have a Phillips head bolt, so I'm going to use a Phillips head screwdriver in order to remove these. However, you may need to use a 10mm socket. Now that that is off, what we can do is head underneath and disconnect our hitch plug wiring harness as well as our lights on the side. So what we can do now that we're underneath the truck is disconnect our hitch wiring harness. There's going to be a tab up at the top. We're going to press down on that and pull back. Now, we actually have to take this out and transfer it over to our new bumper. So what I'm going to do is take a flathead screwdriver, kind of get this out of the way for a second. Then we can take a flathead screwdriver and press in these tabs. You may not even need a screwdriver for this. You can probably just pinch it with your fingers. And then you can just pull forward or push forward, and it should come out the front of the bumper. You can kind of just let it sit on the bumper there. You'll be able to reach through since the license plate's not there. And then we can disconnect our wiring harness for our lights. So on our hitch wiring harness, we also just want to make sure that this is disconnected from our frame here. So I'm just going to press down on this and pull back. You can also use a flathead screwdriver. Just push down on that tab and pull back. Now that's going to be our light for our hitch plug. But if we move a little bit forward, we'll be able to see the plug for our license plate lights on the side. Now you can either pull back on this and remove the bulb completely. This one is already twisted out and disconnected, so you can do that. But what you can also do is just press down and disconnect the bulb completely. So So that side is disconnected. Now we can do the same thing for the other one. So while we're over here, as you can see, the housing is still in place. What I'm gonna do, just like the hitch plug, I am going to take that flathead screwdriver and push in the tabs and push forward, because we do need to remove these in order to remove our bumper. So once you push it forward, you'll be able to completely remove it. And then we can do the same thing on the other side. So what we can do now on either side is remove the clip that's holding in the black part of our bumper. We are gonna have to remove that to expose a couple bolts. So I'm gonna take my flathead screwdriver that I've been using. You can also take a trim removal tool. I'll probably take one for the top, but this is going to release part of that black trim. So right in the middle where our license plate was, that is going to be our next little clip that we have to remove. Again, you can use a flathead screwdriver. You could also use a trim removal tool. But once that's off, what we can do is just completely remove this. Next, we can start disconnecting the bumper from the frame. I'm gonna be using a 12mm socket. There are 2 bolts on either side. There are 2 bolts in the middle here, and then underneath there are a couple more bolts. I'm going to use a 12mm socket and a hand ratchet to go ahead and remove those. Now we can head underneath and remove the 2 bolts on either side that are holding the bottom part of our bumper on our frame. So I'm still going to be using that 12mm socket, and they are going to be right underneath on this large bracket here. I'm also going to be using my impact wrench. Then we can repeat that on the other side. So at this point, our bumper should be ready to be completely removed. So before we hop into the rest of the install, I do want to stop down and tell you guys a little bit more about this new bumper in comparison to our factory one and some of the similarities and the differences between the two. Now, roughly these are going to be set up the same as far as the whole build itself and the shape of the bumper, but our new option is going to be a lot more durable and offer a couple of different benefits that your factory one is unable to allow. Now, this new rear bumper is made of a heavy-duty steel plate construction that's going to hold up very well when you're taking your truck off-road, on the work site, or really just taking it around on the street. And it's going to have a nice textured black powder coat finish on top to protect that steel underneath and add a very heavy-duty and utilitarian look to the back of your Tacoma in comparison to the painted or paint-matched rear bumper and the factory plastics. This is also going to have a large cutout on the bottom there. That's going to act as a step if you want to get back into your bed area. And you're also going to have some cutouts on the side with some mesh plating behind there for a little bit of a touch of style. But what I really like about this bumper that's not really right here is the fact that this is going to come with 3-inch cube lights and mounts in either of those cutouts. Now, this rear bumper is also going to have cutouts for your backup sensors if your Tacoma is equipped, and if it's not, you will have filler plugs to put in there. We'll do that in just a second. Now, overall, you are getting a lot of benefits out of this rear bumper in comparison to your factory one. It's going to give you that heavy duty look. It's going to add some protection, and you're also getting an additional set of lights that are going to help you out with some rear visibility as a work light or even as a backup light. And everything is included, so you will have all of the wiring harnesses. This is going to come again with the plugs for the backup sensor holes, and you're also getting a license plate light and the ability to mount up your hitch plug. So what do you say we go ahead and install our new bumper? So before we can put our bumper on our Tacoma, we do need to put a couple of things onto our bumper first. So we are going to install the little clips for our license plate, our hitch plug. Since we do not have the backup sensors, I'm going to put in the plugs for those, and then we can also install our lights. So starting off, I'm just going to add the retainer clips into the bumper here. So these are just going to press in and accept the hardware for your license plate. Now we can also take our hitch plug, pop that down on in. And we can also install our license plate light. This is going to go into the cutout over on the side. Just like the hitch plug, this is going to have little retainer clips that are going to keep it in place. And then now we can add our plugs for our backup sensors. So they're actually going to have to go in from behind. And you want to make sure that they're sitting in there. Now if you do have the factory backup sensors, there is hardware provided in the kit in order to install them. So now in order to install our lights, I am going to take this back plate off so we can route our wire through and kind of have a little bit easier of a time getting our light installed. So I'm going to take a 4mm Allen key and just start removing the 2 Allen head bolts that are holding on our back plate. There's going to be a nut on the other side. You want to make sure that you grab that. And then same thing for the other one. We can take our provided bolt, put that up and through. Then we can take our light, line it up with the mount inside of the bumper. So once that lock washer and the nut is on there, we can take a 13mm wrench and just give it a good tighten. Making sure that the bolt is seated in that mount. Just check to make sure it's in the spot where we want it to be. Just continue to tighten that up. So once that's in place, we can take our back plate and reinstall that. So we can take that 4mm Allen and just tighten those up. Now if your light's not completely sitting still, what you can do is go back and tighten it up. Again with that 13mm wrench. Cool, now we can repeat that on the other side. So now that we have our lights installed and really everything installed on our bumper, what we need to do before we actually put our bumper on our Tacoma is attach some spade connectors to the leads on our license plate light. These will either have to be spliced in, or what you can do is create a quick disconnect. I personally like to do this because if we do have to take off our bumper in the future, you can very easily disconnect these just like you would any other wiring harness. So I'm just gonna take a quick disconnector, and then there is also a clip on our trailer hitch plug that I'm going to plug these into. You can wire them in however you'd like. I prefer to do it this way. So I'm going to just strip the wire. Now if you are going to do it this way, I would recommend to hit these with some electrical tape as well as heat shrink these, just to make sure that the connectors are protected from the elements. Then you can just crimp them down. Same thing for our ground. All right, so now that these are on, we are all set to install our bumper on the back of our Tacoma. Now I would like to mention before we put our bumper on, if you do not have the factory hitch, you will need to utilize these brackets. So we already have a bracket with our hitch and the rear of our frame here. However, these would just install on the side with the factory bolts. However, we are not going to use these. We're going to use our factory mounting location. So let's go ahead and put on our bumper. So now with the help of a friend, what we can do is place this over the frame and get it secured to our Tacoma. What we can do now is secure down our bumper with our provided hardware. There's going to be 2 in the bottom of the frame, and then there's going to be 1 on this side. So now we can tighten up our hardware on either side, making sure that the bumper's sitting where you want it. Now for the bolt head side, I'm going to be using an 18mm socket, and for the nut side, I'm going to be using a 19mm wrench. Then we can repeat that for the other side. So what we can do next is plug in our license plate light. So we have our ground as well as our power here on the license plate. And then I also have put a clip on the green wire, which is our running light power, and then the black wire, which is our ground. So I'm just going to connect those into the corresponding spot. Now these are very helpful to be a quick disconnect. Again, if you have to take off your bumper in the future, this is probably the easiest way to do it. So once those are in there, we can reinstall our hitch plug, making sure that it's set all the way in our bumper and that it clicks. Right. Once that's clicked in, we can start running the wiring harness for our auxiliary lighting. What we can do at this point is wire up our auxiliary lights. Now you can do this however you'd like. I am going to use the harness that is provided in the kit. We're going to attach the 2 leads to the battery. We're going to run the switch inside our cab area and the 2 plugs for our 2 lights on the back. I'm going to run the wiring harness along the frame and plug them in to those lights. Now you can individually wire them into your backup lights if you'd like to do that. You can really wire them up however you'd like. I'm just going to use the wiring harness that's in the kit. So first what I'm going to do is actually put these leads aside, and I'm going to run this switch inside the cab area. There is a grommet right on the side of our brake master cylinder that I am just going to push this through. It may even be a little bit easier to completely disconnect the switch, so just being mindful of where these wires are. We're just going to disconnect them. So what we can do next is connect our leads to our battery. I'm going to start with our positive terminal. I'm using a 12mm socket and a small ratchet in order to do this. Then we can connect our other one to our ground, which I'm going to use a 10mm socket. We can use really any bolt that's going to give us a good ground. I'll use this one on the side. Now once that's connected, we can run our leads down to the side of the frame and then back to our lights. I'm going to drop them towards the inner wheel well, making sure that they're away from anything that is hot. So what we can do is pull them through the wheel well and then start to run them along the frame. So you want to make sure that they're away from any moving components. We can pass them over here. And you can just start to follow all the wiring harnesses all the way to the back. So it should come from the upper left-hand corner, that grommet. But once we have the switch inside the cab, you're gonna have those 3 prongs. Blue's gonna go on the outside on the silver. Red's gonna go in the middle on the silver. Then black's gonna go on the outside on the copper. Now you can mount this up wherever you'd like. You can drill a hole in the dash. You can just kind of let it hang out. You can zip tie it wherever you'd like. I'm just gonna leave it here because we're not going to modify our dash. However, our switch is installed. Now we can plug in our auxiliary lights. So at this point, we can plug in our connectors at the back. If you do have a little bit of excess, what you can do is just tie them up and out of the way with a pair of zip ties. But we're gonna take the other one for the passenger side and mount that behind our spare. And we'll be able to plug this in. You wanna make sure that the plug is going around the frame so you are not damaging it in any way. Now, once those are plugged in, we can clean up our wiring, install our license plate, and we'll be all good to go. So last but not least, we can install our license plate. Now, our factory hardware will not fit, yours may. I'm just going to use 2 self-tapping screws. Once your license plate is secure, then you're all set to go. So that's gonna wrap it up for my review and install. Make sure you like and subscribe, and for more videos and products just like this, always keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.